Oh, it's still set up from my TikTok studio. I don't care. Invite. Okay, how do I invite guests? Invite.
The short version is what should have been a 7-minute drive home took me 20 minutes.
Oh, is it because they have the road all closed off for construction?
No, it's just the shitty fucking lights.
Oh,
Took me 3 cycles to get through it.
that's annoying. Can you... Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'm never... expand. Aha, okay, that's better.
Expand! We have expanded.
I don't do this, so, like, I have no idea how any of this works, so... And I hate looking at my own stupid face. So... But good, okay, I'm all set up. I'm all set up.
Can everyone hear me okay?
I can hear you, and fundamentally that's what matters.
I was gonna say that's what matters.
I hate TikTok Live, so I will, generally speaking, be ignoring my chat. So if you even so much as attempt to talk to me and I don't know you, I will probably ignore you. Just so you're aware.
I'll hit him.
Fair enough. Yeah, I stopped doing this because people were mean, and it made me angry.
Oh, that's okay. I've got zero qualms telling people to.
Our
We can swear on here. I have zero qualms telling people to fuck off.
Yeah, fair enough.
I don't want your TikTok to get suspended like mine did.
Oh, I mean, I suspect not. You know what? Maybe I shouldn't say what he said because I don't want to. I mean, I don't care if I get banned, but as is, TikTok is already currently unhappy with me. It's so... I made a video about it, but it's so bizarre. My metrics are fucky on here, and I never understand them, and it's truly one of the more bizarre things. I don't understand this stupid platform. And I don't understand YouTube either. It's very bizarre. I'm slowly figuring it out.
Yeah, I'm only just now getting acquainted with TikTok Live, and I will say I like it, but there's some things.
I was surprised you could because I had to wait till I had 1,000 followers to get on here.
That was it, yeah. But one day it gave me the option, and I said, "Okay, cool."
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm told that's how you progress on TikTok is you have to eventually go live. But like, I just couldn't be bothered. I stopped doing lives until you were like, podcast, do the podcast live, and I was like, you know what? All right. I'll do the podcast.
Did I just see somebody from Afghanistan come in?
You'd be surprised. Like,
well, if so, I have a question for them. Ironically, somewhat pertinent to what we're talking about, or perhaps they're of Afghan ancestry.
Maybe? I think this is... Whoa, this is the most likes I've ever got organically on here. But to be fair, it's the first time I've ever actually talked to somebody on here instead of just staring and talking to myself, so...
Well, let's not keep them waiting. Why are we here, Justin?
I don't know. But you were supposed to do another podcast, and then you were like, "Hey, you want to go live on TikTok?" And I was like, "Sure." And that was sort of where it ended. I'm not really. I guess to discuss politics, I suppose.
Well,
talk about your politics.
You had posted a video, essentially asking the question, and I don't think it was rhetorical. You were asking the question about. I forget what it was in response to, but it was Republican politics. And basically your question, not really your assertion, was, haven't Republicans lost the culture war?
That was it. Yeah, well, just certainly it seems like that infighting, because I respectfully don't always agree with you, but I respect you. And I respect you.
That's fair.
I respect you enough to hear you out, at least.
Yeah, and that's going to happen because I'm from a very... I don't care if people know. I'm from Indiana in the United States, a very, very red state. And you're in Canada, in a what I understand is, generally speaking, a fairly liberal area, and I don't mean liberal as a dig, more progressive, not liberal. Liberal's not
Yeah.
the right word. Because I
Sorry.
consider myself a liberal, actually.
Oh,
But-
interesting. Interesting.
Well, but see, that's the thing, though. This is where definitions have shifted over time. Liberal has come to mean, for the most part, people on the far left side of the political spectrum, at least in the United States. I identify more with the classical definition of a liberal, which was a most amount of freedom possible.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the general, like, laissez-faire. If it doesn't affect anybody else, I really don't care.
Interesting. Okay, so then I guess that definitely. I tend to say that I tend to like swing more liberal. I don't consider myself liberal. We here in Canada, we have a what I call a middle of the road party called the NDP. They're not quite liberal. They're not quite. I guess that would be you have a Green Party. We have a Green Party. It's our equivalent to third party, but it has more power and like effect than your third parties does. Like, you typically want the NDP on your side. So I vote for them. But I do live in a conservative area. Like,
Really?
yeah, highly conservative. Like, they crush my riding every single year. I sort of futilely vote NDP, but...
Well, I feudally vote libertarian most of the time, so I do.
Okay, so you get me then. You get me. Because, like,
Yeah.
here's my thing with Republican politics. Beyond the fact that just on its face, it's... I don't like to call people hypocrites, but it feels hypocritical to be like, hey, we're going after DEI and all that stuff, and here's our version of DEI. Like, it kind of feels like they're trucking out or they're parading out what's her face, Rose, to be like, we're all about the colored people. Don't get me wrong.
Well, so I think I can shed some light on that, and it is very much a response to. It's a response to the what would you call that? The tendency of the left to trot out minorities.
Interesting.
Now they're doing this because the narrative that the left has spun over the past at least decade, if not longer, is the fact that their narrative is that Republicans don't care about minorities. Well, that's hold comments till the end. That's half true and half false. It's not that Republican, and again, this is a general statement. There are absolutely racist ass Republicans. They exist. But in terms of the philosophy of the political philosophy of the party, it's not that they don't care about minorities. It's just they don't care about minorities more than anyone else.
Interesting.
See, the Republican Party at its core is a party of principle in that they're not really interested in racial identity so much as they are in like fiscal responsibility. They're policy people at their heart. Now a lot of Republicans, particularly in certain states who shall for the moment remain nameless because you know who you are, there are some Republican politicians that, maybe not so much anymore. They don't so much come out and show their racism, but I mean, it's open because they're clueless about how obvious they're being.
Yeah.
But that is a minority. Because anybody who's been watching the Republican National Convention, which I have been, and I have lots of thoughts, both good and bad. But, I mean, there's a lot of representation in that party. So to make the claim that the Republican Party is a racist party is just blatantly not true. Like, if you have eyes, you can see that it's not.
I mean, I have lots of thoughts about the RNC, beginning with the phrase, we need to humanize Donald Trump. Like, that's never a good sign. But it just kind of, the RNC in particular seems to really, it's like they've realized they need the kids. Like, and they're not being, like, they're like, we need to get the youth vote, so we need to appeal to them in the most transparently shallow way possible. Like, that's just kind of what it seems like.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that is something Republicans have historically been bad at, which is kind of a symptom of conservatism as a whole, in that they don't understand younger people.
Well, tell me if you disagree with it, because I heard this sort of phrase, and it kind of blew my mind, which was liberals want a future they're too lazy to create, and conservatives desperately want to hold on to a past that no longer exists. And I kind of went, that felt like there was some truth to that, to a little bit, to a certain degree.
There's a little truth to both those statements. However, I would say that the description of the left side is a little bit more accurate because... So here's the thing. and again, it's really hard to pin this down because conservative is a very, very broad sense.
Yeah.
Conservatism as a whole, basically what it means to me isn't so much as we want to go back to the 1950s. It's more along the lines of it's kind of a misnomer, because conservative kind of makes you think, oh, we want to conserve everything the way it is now. That's not and that's not entirely accurate. To me, all conservatism really is as a philosophy, and this is coming from someone who's not always a conservative. It depends on the issue. Sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. But conservatism, I think a truly enlightened conservative understands that the world is going to change regardless, but maybe we should walk and not run. Maybe we think a little bit more before we jump off the cliff.
Interesting, because I would make the argument that, I mean, you had sort of said that the Republicans are split right now, and I kind of agree with that, because I follow all of those, they would call them on the left conservative grifters, but like your Matt Walsh's, who like, he was really mad at the RNC, and I'm like, he kind of seems like he's the conservative who's holding on to the past, and being like, he doesn't want to accept the fact that that's what I meant when I said those guys don't want to accept the fact that a tiny bit of progressiveness is maybe the future. Like, you're gonna have to deal with people of color at some point in your life, and you need to learn how to do that in a way that's...
Okay, to be fair, I don't think Matt Walsh is a racist per se, but I think your overall prescription of him is accurate. But you have to take that with a grain of salt, because these are also television personalities. I know they're on streaming, but so they have to kind of, and like even, and I actually give Ben Shapiro a lot of credit as a host, as someone who, I think it's very rare that he kind of dials it up higher than it needs to be, especially compared to other conservative hosts. Because I've seen episodes of his show where he literally will say, "Is like, and my audience is not going to like this, but this is how I see it," you know. And then he goes into, and obviously don't agree with him all the time. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, and sometimes I think, it might be a little too far, but he's got a different perspective than me, right?
Yeah.
That's why it's important, I think, to listen to people on all sides. However, as someone who does listen to various things on all sides and subscribes to pages on both sides. Certainly since 2016, the left has jumped on a crazy train, and they have zero issue. They don't even realize they're driving it off a cliff. I mean, it's pretty obvious, and they've dug a hole when it comes to Joe Biden, because Joe Biden was selected because he was considered, he ran on a platform of being a moderate.
Yes.
And then he spent his entire presidency catering to the loudest portion of the left, which is the most radical. Not fully, but he's trying to placate them at best, and sometimes he bends the knee, quite literally.
See, I would make a similar argument for Donald Trump and his evangelical base, where it's laughable that man is like I made a video about it that I don't think it did well, but where I said, so are they going to provide me the stones for when we stone him to death, or like, do I bring my own? And how does this work? Because that's the punishment for adultery. And we all agree he did it. We all agree he did it. Like, that was the weirdest part about that debate.
Everybody but Donald Trump agrees that he did it.
Yeah, it's so, like, that's not what they argued in court, Don. Like, we all legally agree that you did it. Like, people want to high five you over it. So, like, own it maybe, but like that. But then he would alienate that evangelical base. It's so bizarre.
Actually, he wouldn't, because they've done surveys of a large amount of times, and I don't understand how this is possible. I really don't. But they've surveyed a lot of people, and sure, some people would have a problem with it, but the majority doesn't.
That's so.
I know, it's weird. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't understand it.
I googled it and I was like, isn't he the like? Aren't they the like we take the Bible literally group? And I'm like, well, if you're taking the Bible literally, then he's not the guy.
I probably shouldn't say this because it's going to be taken the wrong way, but this is also a crowd where the vast majority of the people have either never read the Bible cover to cover, or if they have, they clearly don't understand it. And the thing is, like, there's vast swaths of the Bible. Not a lot of people know this about me. When I was younger, I aspired to be a pastor.
So, interesting.
Took a complete 180. But
wow. Yeah, I read the Bible cover to cover when I was a kid. as like an exercise, just to prove that I could. And I had a little children's version of the Bible that I read, just to like because I'm the kind of person where like I want to understand as much as I can. Like knowledge is power to me. So like from an academic standpoint, I think Jordan said this, co-host on my podcast, but for those who are watching, but he said that he sees the Bible less as a list of straight rules and Pirates of the Caribbean style, and more of like a set of guidelines than hard and fast rules.
The Ten Commandments really be more like guidelines than actual rules.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'm like, I sort of feel like maybe that's how not so much like I got really into this skeptic YouTube channel. And he found the idea that anyone would take he's like, the Bible's not meant to be taken literally, right? Like, we get that it's metaphors and extended metaphors, right? It's not, some of it is like historically accurate, but not all of it is historically accurate. And ever since he said that, it kind of like, oh yeah, that's a good point. Because there is stuff in it that it's like historically true. Like, I used to be one of those like, Jesus isn't real, right? kind of people, and then I fell down a rabbit hole of like, no, he was a real guy, and it turns out he had some good ideas. He was a pretty smart guy, that Jesus.
Well, Jesus wanted to reform basically the Jewish. I don't know if church is the right word, but he wanted to reform he wanted to reform Judaism, basically.
Yeah. Well, that he was just. I think I watched a really interesting video about how Christianity spread so quickly.
The Roman Empire.
Yeah. Well, it's because they were just so fucking nice to everybody that the Romans found it off-putting.
I love the way you phrase that. In the very, very early days of Christianity, it was less of like, this is a threat, and more of like, what?
These guys are so... That end, turns out... I don't know if I should say this. Fuck it. Humor is subjective. Jesus was a total puss hound. He loved the ladies.
But see, I would argue not the case, because sometimes I think it takes a lot more courage to... Why do you have a mustache?
Oh god, I have a hat. See, I can't see myself. That's a friend of mine who just sent me that. Thanks.
But it's interesting, and I can't speak to the 100% accuracy of this, but I know it is based on true events. It looks like that tall girl 1018 sent a hat and mustache. Where's mine? Damn it!
Yeah, that's a friend of mine.
But anyway. There's a movie called The End All Wars, and there's a novel as well that the movie is based on, and it's a memoir of some Scottish POWs in the Second World War. And long story short, they end up, they were already Christians, but they basically, their faith was a big reason why they were able to power through. They were the POWs that were responsible for building the same bridge that's bridge over the River Kwai.
Oh, gotcha, yeah. I actually do know that.
And in the movie, and again, this is the part I can't speak to the accuracy, but I wouldn't be surprised. In the movie, at least, they get their books taken away, and in an effort to get them back, they show their Japanese captors that the book teaches them to turn the other cheek. And then in the movie, the commander slaps him across the face, and then he just stands there and lets him slap him across the face again. So he literally turns the other cheek, and then they get their books back. That's
fun. Yeah, that was like, the thing that kind of again blew my mind was that the truest follower of like Jesus's actual teachings is Mr. Rogers. Like he's the truest, like most faithful, like follower of Jesus' teachings, and that kind of blew my mind. I'm like, what?
I forget who said it to me. Somebody said to me a couple years ago, shortly after he died, not immediately after, but shortly after, and he said, "Oh, it's all going to come out now." And I'm like, Mr. Rogers, I don't think so.
No, that's what this biopic was about. It was about the one with Tom Hanks was entirely about a guy trying to find out if something was wrong with Mr. Rogers.
And it's like, we found nothing. The man found nothing.
Yeah, well, it's like. He didn't. Apparently, I watched a ton of biographies on Mr. Rogers because he's such a fascinating guy. But he apparently hated that characterization because he was like, and his kids were like, he's just like he's a regular guy. Like, yeah, he gets upset occasionally. It happens, Yeah.
I think Mr. Rogers getting upset is probably like a kitten throwing a fit. He's like, oh, gee, Willikers.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
There's a hole in my sweater.
It reminded me of my when I was a kid, my great grandmother would tell us about golfing, and she'd be like, "Your grandma said a swear," a swear or two when she golf, and like, yeah, that's sort of how I saw Mr. Rogers. Like, he's probably said the occasional F word. I refuse
He
to
said
believe
a
he didn't.
swear.
Yeah, okay, the occasional swear. He said the occasional swear.
I used to have a we used to have a girl that worked for us in our office, and I can curse like a sailor on shore leave. Like it's pretty bad, but we used to always kind of joke, and because she would never swear ever, like, and she would just not. And then one day she dropped an F bomb, and my business.
Oh, that's always fun.
We looked at her. She was mad. She was so mad, and she dropped an F bomb, and then she actually covered her mouth, and we both looked at her, and we were like, "We're so proud of you."
That's what I would have been like. Nice.
I was like, "You said a swear."
But okay. I saw another in regards to politics again. That the word centrist has become like a filthy word. Man, I got so much shit for being a centrist. Like, I don't know if I was gonna make a video on it, and then I decided against it. Remember how I was in that conflict with that one YouTuber? Yeah, she blocked me, which was kind of disappointing. Like, I'm kind of disappointed by that, because I respected what she had to say. I respected her point of view, and the reason why I found out that she blocked me, because I went to go look for her point of view. Exactly. Yeah, Bob's sorry, distracting. I was looking for her point of view, and that's where I found out she blocked me, and that disappointed me because we disagreed on something. That's fine. Like, I disagreed with her on a thing. It doesn't make her like a bad person. I think blocking me makes her slightly cowardly, but like,
well, yeah, because the thing is, she's like, and there was another guy in my comments on one of my videos, which wasn't even, at least I didn't think it was particularly controversial, but it really set him off. And he even said, he was like, if you're not a coward, you'll debate me on your podcast. I was like, come on, we go live.
Yeah. I don't have an interest in I just want people to like. I sort of had the realization that you can't tell people they're wrong. They have to like experience the wrongness on their own, or like hear it out loud. And I just really don't think they like the fact that I called them. I said they were pro-fascist.
But the secret to that, I have a very Socratic debating style, where, because it's like you said, you can't tell somebody they're wrong, but you can kind of lead them there.
Exactly.
And it doesn't work all the time, but at the very least, you might be able to lead them there, and they won't accept it, but someone who's watching might accept it.
Exactly.
I find that to be the most effective way. And a lot of times I'm not even necessarily trying to change their mind. I might be trying to understand, or I might be like, well, you're missing some context, which happens with Trump a lot.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But sometimes they catch him. Like, the context is either worse or like it's not better. Like there's times where like you're like, okay, no, I need to see this thing. But to be fair, there's a lot of your politicians that are like that.
That's the nature of politicians. They at best they're lying half the time.
Like I mean, my favorite clip is the one of Marjorie Taylor Greene doing her speech at the RNC, and she's trying to smile, and she keeps making. Why did she make that sound, Jake? What was with the sound? What was she doing? I don't understand her.
Well, and then
she's a baffling figure.
What I'm really liking, and both sides are doing this, but I'm seeing it a lot at the RNC, is they try their hardest to incorporate certain buzzwords, and it comes off as so unnatural.
Yeah.
But to be fair, the left does it too. Like, I recently watched Ben Shapiro testified before Congress. I forget which committee, but not every single, but the vast majority of Democrats in that committee, like, tried so hard to drop Project 2025, and literally every conservative on planet Earth is like, why do they keep bringing up Project 2025? Like, it's not a thing. Like, it's not a thing. Like,
well, it's here's what I will say. It's a thing that there's a segment of people on the right who would like for a thing that is like that to happen. I do think that there's probably a segment of people who would love a theocratic state. I don't see, your government is so gridlocked right now. I don't see that happening. Like, I don't see them getting it through. Like,
well, and then specifically speaking about the theocracy, because I know what you're referencing, and for those who don't know, Project 2025 is a thing that exists, but what it really is, it is a document that was put out by the Heritage Foundation and certain other people that are connected to it, and it's basically like a wish list, which is never going to happen.
yeah,
Certainly not in a year. And one of the reasons it's not going to happen is because the Constitution has fail-safes against appointing a state religion, and
yeah.
that's going to get rid of that. It would require a constitutional amendment. And really, you think that the United States, in any capacity, is going to repeal the First Amendment or any part of it? It's the first one.
I mean, just put it. There's a lot of like stuff that your government, that when people are like, oh, a dictatorship would involve your government agreeing more than they're capable of at this point.
Which is what I tell everyone when they're like, Trump's going to be a dictator. I'm like, okay, even if he wanted to, which I don't think he does. I know he said the thing. It's called the turn of phrase. It's called hyperbole. But let's assume that Trump wanted to be a dictator. He literally can't.
No. Why?
It's not possible for him to do.
The thing with Trump is a lot of times he says things that he thinks are or that are meant to be jokes, and he doesn't realize that people take him literally sometimes. Like the dictator thing was like, I think it was like a podcast clip or something. It was taken out of context, and like, yeah, he clearly didn't actually mean it. Like,
yeah, that tall girl's got it. She said, I don't like Trump, but he wasn't a dictator the first time. Why wouldn't he do it now? And I'm glad you said that, because in fact, there were times during Trump's first term where he showed incredible restraint of executive power, and he doesn't get credit for that.
I don't think Trump wants to be a dictator. Look, that's going to be my stance. I don't think he does. I don't think he ever did. I think there's people who he surrounds himself with who does. Like, I think there are people who would like him to be one, but I don't think he's the guy who wants it. I think truthfully, look, full bore, the only reason why he's even running the second time is to avoid going to jail. Getting railroaded.
I don't think that. I think the only reason he was at risk of going to jail is because he ran a second time.
See, I don't know that because he's never given me the vibe, and this is me, Canadian, watching from the outside comes in. He's never given me the vibe he ever wanted to be president. He's always given me the vibe of like, oh shit, I didn't expect to get this far. You know South Park? It's South Park. Like, I'm pretty sure. I feel like they're spot on with that.
I'll be honest. I agree with that when it comes to 2016, because I don't think he thought he was going to get past the primaries. I really don't.
No.
It did. If you remember, and I know it was years ago. It was 8 years ago. So you're going to have to really like you're going to have to take some member berries for this one. But like the early stage of his campaign after the primaries was a shit show. Like, they had no idea what they were doing.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'd heard that. What was it, Jared? There was that story that Jared, like, when they toured the White House, asked how many of the guys were going to stick around. Like, how many of these guys do we get to keep? And they were like, no, you have to bring in all new guys. There was that famous story. They were in no way like prepared for him to be president. No, and no. But I mean, do you believe that story that he only became president because Obama roasted him at the correspondence dinner?
No.
You don't believe that?
No, I think what happened was Trump. See, that's the thing too, and I don't think a lot of people
sure seemed to have a beef against Obama. Like, that's not anything else. That's what it seemed like for a long time.
Trump's demonstrated several times over the years he's got an incredible sense of humor. But I think the reason Donald Trump got elected is because the political elites, mostly on the left, but I mean they exist on the right too. Trump tapped into the forgotten parts of America, basically the middle of the country, because most politicians prior to Trump were. I mean, I know they made political stops, but you had Hillary Clinton, who was only like one step away from saying, like, I only care about New York, Florida, California, and Illinois and Pennsylvania. Like, the middle of the country has been neglected politically for a very, very long time.
I mean,
go ahead.
I was going to say Hillary Clinton, not in her defense, but that was a campaign of incompetence in the sense that, like, she lost because she thought she was going to win. Like, she thought it was going to be a slam dunk. I mean, to be fair, everybody did. Go back to South Park. South Park did. Like, we all thought that he was gonna lose. So like I mean I remember I said I was it John Oliver did a do it. I said, oh, it's gonna be the clown show. Like none of us took him serious. But to be fair, I would argue, and I can't speak for you as an American, but for me as a Canadian, we were programmed to not like Trump from like childhood,
from day one, and I still talk about this.
I'm not even from like even like in the campaign. I mean, like prior to that, like I watched the Super Mario Brothers movie for the podcast, and that he's just Donald Trump. He's just like, to me, Donald Trump will forever be like, he's like, to me, in my brain from when I was a kid, a Captain Planet villain. Like that's how I see Donald Trump. Like he is a child's idea of like, if you were to ask an 8-year-old child, describe a serious businessman to me, or like if you watched Rugrats as a child, it's that episode where Tommy and like that's so like when you're like that guy's gonna be president, I'm like, all right.
Well, you know, they were saying the same thing about Ronald Reagan though when he was running.
Yeah. To be fair, yeah. I mean, there's that famous quote from Back to the Future: "Ronald Reagan, the actor."
The actor. So, well, and guess what his campaign slogan was?
"Make America Great Again." Yeah, that I do know.
Yeah, no, the parallels between Trump and Reagan. That's why. So even back in 2016, and unfortunately we can't document this. Well, unfortunately, there's no documentation of this because we didn't start our podcast until 2020. But I have referenced this. Everyone was, saying like Trump doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell, and then I'm reminding everybody, it's like, well, they said that in the primary.
Yeah,
and he didn't just win the primary. I mean, he obliterated the primary, and everyone was surprised.
My theory for this election, my conspiracy theory, if you will, is that all of the candidates, including the Republican ones, thought they had something on Donald Trump, or certainly thought that he had no chance, because I stand by that's the only reason why guys like Vivek or guys like Ron DeSantis who knew they had no chance ran, was because they thought, they say with Joe Biden. My theory is the only reason why Joe Biden ran is because someone got in his ear and told him that Donald Trump had no chance of winning. That's the only reason why he ran. Like, I stand by that.
And he should know better. But I'm going to answer Tall Girl's question first. If Americans are so afraid of dictatorship, then why do they have so many HOAs? That actually depends on where you are in the U.S. And it's there's actually a word for this, and I cannot remember. So,
that's Homeowners Association? Yeah. I've heard of these. I've heard tale of these.
The vast majority of them really aren't that bad. You only hear about the awful examples, and the awful examples you see, technically an HOA can't do a lot of those things. And I mean, I'll be real. In Indiana, if somebody's like, some of the videos you see of HOA representatives harassing people, firstly, a lot of those are fake. Yeah. There's one I've been following, and I know they're fake because at least where I live, if somebody, even if they're from the HOA, if somebody has a locksmith come and unlock my door, I have every right to, I just realized we're on TikTok, I have every right to use arms against them. I will put it that way.
Yeah, fair enough, yeah.
And I hate doing that because I don't like using replacement words. I think it's lame, but TikTok.
Oh, I know.
I don't do it on YouTube. I just straight up say the words. But
yeah, I'm not monetized on YouTube.
I have every right to use force on an intruder into my home, particularly if I've given them a verbal warning to not come in my home.
Yeah.
So personally, I think HOAs are. I hate them. When I had a house a few years ago in a ritzier neighborhood, and they weren't bad, but they told me that I couldn't. What did they tell me I couldn't do? They told me that, because I had just bought the house and I didn't make any changes to it, and they told me that my wood trim was an inappropriate color, and I said, well, first of all, it's not my problem because I bought the house that way, so the other person violated it, and I really don't care what you think my paint color should be. And I never heard from them again. And the thing, what's this? More than some HOAs, if they issue fines, you can... Yeah, you know what, though? As far as I know, they can't actually enforce those fines. And even if they can say they put a lien on your house, but I've never actually heard of an HOA successfully doing that.
It just sounds like the group of people bullying people who are less informed. kind of
That's all it is. Because here's the way I see it, and I could be wrong because I've never actually gotten that far with the HOA. Here's the thing: I'm paying the mortgage and I'm paying the property taxes.
Yeah.
Other than that, you can suck it.
It reminds me of like those HOA videos remind me of it. Maybe you can explain them to me because no one has yet. I even went so far as to Google this. First Amendment auditors. They for whatever reason like pollute. Have you never seen a First Amendment auditing video? They're
not.
No. Oh my god. Okay. How do you explain them? Basically, they're guys with like a camera and they show up to like government buildings.
Okay. Yeah.
And then they're like, it's my right to film in a public place and be a huge pain in the ass. And I'm like, but does America not? Do you guys not have public nuisancy laws? Like that's
I'll be honest. It depends on where you are. However, for a lot of those videos, I will say the person with the camera is generally right, but they're also being a dick.
Yeah, that's my perspective. Like, yeah, what you're saying is technically right, but you're being a fucking ass.
And the reason I say it depends on where you are is because, like, how do I explain this? So there are some states that are two-party consent states, meaning that both parties have to agree to be filmed or photographed.
Oh, interesting.
And that applies for public spaces as well. Now most of them are not. The guideline is that if there's an expectation of privacy, then you have a right not to be filmed. But if you're out in public or on the street, as long as there's no expectation of privacy and out in public, that's very hard to prove.
Yeah.
You basically have to be intentionally trying to hide yourself, and even then it's dicey depending on where you are.
Isn't it also dependent on whether or not you're profiting off of the person's image? You have to get release forms. Isn't that not how it works down
it depends
where you guys are?
Because you could very easily argue incidental inclusion. Now, if you're interviewing someone, yeah, you're going to need to get a release. But
interesting.
a lot of times, though, it's always a good idea to get a release. But a lot of times, though, agreeing to be interviewed is
in and of itself a release. Interesting.
Yeah. Now, but it's any professional production is going to get a release form.
Interesting. Because here in Canada, you don't have to tell a person if you record them. You can just record them.
Here it depends on the state because there are some even for recorded phone calls. There are some states I don't know all of them. I know that Indiana is not one of them where I live, where you don't have to tell somebody. However, that doesn't mean it's admissible in a court of law.
Also
it depends. So a lot of times that's more of a civil case thing.
I've heard that those guys just want to set up a cop for a lawsuit. That's all they want to do, basically.
I mean, probably, and I think those guys are. See, the thing is, and like this is a lot of my political opinions. Is you can be right, but you can still be an ass.
Yeah, that's my thing. I completely agree with that. Yeah, like you could be right, but you could still be. People's like I hate when people like facts over feelings because like man no feelings still do kind of matter. Like you could be kind or nice about a thing. You don't have to be a dick to a person. Like one of my favorite clips is you bring up Ben Shapiro, but I love that clip of I can't remember what he was asking Neil deGrasse Tyson, but he just came back with, why are you asking that question? Like what is your motivation behind asking that? And it just completely stunned Ben Shapiro. He's like I
know the interview you're talking about
and to be fair, I don't like Neil deGrasse Tyson. To be fair,
really, I like him a lot.
I mean, classic fun ruiner Neil deGrasse Tyson. But I think he can be kind of. I don't agree with his. I think he can be condescending about his, or willfully ignorant about his opinions on aliens. And that's gonna sound crazy, because he's like I've seen so many clips of him like being dismissively like, oh, aliens have come thousands of light years to visit us, and they're just doing lights across the sky. It's like, well, have you ever considered the fact, Neil, or what are they possibly coming here to get from us? It's like, well, have you ever considered that they're maybe just watching us? You know, there's that not to get to alien stuff.
Somebody clearly
but
never watched Star Trek: First Contact.
That's what I'm saying. Or like, they've come here to make sure that we don't blow ourselves up with nuclear weapons. Like that's the big one. I've heard a lot of like alien conspiracies where it's like they've come here to tell us that aliens are my thing. That's my everyone's got their one conspiracy thing.
Wouldn't that be such a shameful way to find out that aliens are out there? Is if they stop a nuclear holocaust from happening?
Well, that would be, but here.
I mean, thanks aliens, but at the same time, it's like, oh man.
You want to bring it back. You want to know who made me believe in aliens fully? Donald Trump, because and here's why. All right. Somebody said way back, you want to know how you know aliens aren't real? Because if aliens were real, Donald Trump wouldn't be able to keep his big mouth shut. He would have been like, and the aliens are awesome and they're sweet and they're great, and he would have blabbed. There's no way he wouldn't have, even accidentally.
All I'm saying is, did they come here legally?
Yeah, and so then after someone had said that, like, I'm not even kidding, like 2 weeks, a month later, the government started to be like, no, UFOs are real and aliens are real, and I'm like, Donald Trump found out. They're just preempting him giving it away. He found out.
So, fun fact though, that's another thing that I don't think Donald Trump gets enough credit for, and everybody laughed at him, and they're still kind of making fun of him for it, but designating the Space Force as a separate branch of the military.
I mean, my thing was it was the Enterprise symbol. It was just like, come on, man.
You have to though. I was so happy. when that.
It was like, there's no way that's not. And then someone pointed out that no. I think it was Reagan who initially did the initial logo for it. So it wasn't. Yeah. It was just a weird coincidence. They didn't actually. It's just like, it looks just like the Star Trek logo. Come on, it's funny.
I know. I love that though. But actually, and see, it's funny because everybody was like, "Why? Why do we need them?" Because I'm like, because you guys don't get it. Here's the thing: if we do actually have like military in space, it can't be part of the Air Force.
No. It has to be its own branch of government, yeah.
It has to be. And Donald Trump is anticipating that. And the thing of it is whoever controls Earth's orbit.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's the same thing as the ocean. It was the same thing as the ocean. Whoever controlled the ocean controlled the...
Yeah, that's what she said. She said, Space Force sounds stupid until we're out actively exploring space. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Or what was there was nothing, where he was like, he was explaining... what happens in like a black hole, like as if like so matter of fact. It's like we don't really know. It's like we don't really know for sure what happens in a black hole. Or there's a couple clips of his which just rubbed me the wrong way.
And I can see that, but I think that's I actually think Neil deGrasse Tyson is one of the how do I say this? One of the more tactful academics out there because he's an experienced communicator.
Yeah.
Some of these people, like I've seen some conference videos where it's just like they literally look at people like this. It's like, well, I can see someone didn't study calculus.
Richard Dawkins is the classic example of
my God, it's so funny you mentioned Richard Dawkins because I recently
smug brick.
What is it?
Yeah, he's the classic. Whenever anyone's like atheists are douches, that him and like the Amazing Atheist. I don't know if you're familiar with him. I don't know if he's still around.
So I just, I'm not gonna lie. I started reading this book, and then it was so painful. I switched to the audiobook, and I recently finished it. This book is terrible.
Is it?
It's awful, and the reason it's awful is because it is 10 chapters of him saying the same thing over and over again in different ways. And all he really wants to say with this book is that religious people are stupid douchebags.
That's my thing. Yeah, that when you like belittle Carl Sagan was a gem.
Carl Sagan was a gem.
When you belittle people for like, I don't believe the thing you believe, but I'm not gonna make you feel less than I won't name him for this one, but I know someone who would say. I used to believe in God, but then again, I used to believe in Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny. That kind of sort of higher than thou attitude towards it is like that's not really helpful. But
people didn't believe in atoms at first either.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I'm not conflating God to atoms, but I mean the thing of it is like. Everything starts out as superstition. The early, to throw some shade at the church, the early church, literally killed people for believing that the earth wasn't the center of the universe.
Yeah, you learn about history, and I watching this skeptic channel and a lot of like history videos, you're kind of like, yeah, humans we're not great at times, but we used to be so much worse. Like I was watching videos about it's funny you mentioned the Romans. I was watching videos about Romans and. I was watching a video about the crazy one, Caligula.
Oh,
I was watching a video about
Caligula. You're gonna have to narrow it down.
and I watched it. It was really interesting because it was like a lot of these like really like well-known like nutcases. He posed the question of is it that Caligula was a nutcase, or was it that his enemies just kind of told people that he was, and it just kind of stuck?
I'm going to say both, because while I do consider naming your horse Council a baller move, I don't think they would make that up.
No, yeah. There's just certain things where it's like maybe, yeah, probably, but like their idea of morality was just different.
That's the other thing is I don't really want the Romans to lecture me about morality.
I watched a really good video, another really interesting video about how part of the theory for why they were so nuts is like lead poisoning. Apparently, like there was like how they constructed a lot of their like aqueducts and stuff. They think that there was lead in a lot of their pipes, and that's what caused them to be just okay with gladiators and stuff.
No, I think to be fair, I think they were okay with it well before then. I don't think the lead necessarily influenced that. That's a good question. Which one? I want to say that was Nero who declared war on Poseidon and had them attack the sea.
That's like literally like stab the sea with swords.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
And then I think it was also Nero that ordered an entire legion to just go onto the shore and pick up seashells.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, there's a lot of interesting, like the idea that the Noah story is the one that like blew my mind. Of like, yeah, there's like 100 of these stories, and their details like are mostly the same. So it's like, yeah, there probably was like a big flood at one point. On the plates, thought that tomatoes were poison. History is nuts. Yes, history is absolutely nuts. Yeah, that's what I kind of realized.
And what I'm laughing about is I'm looking forward, not necessarily to being old, but I am kind of looking forward to like when I'm in my 60s and looking back on the Trump presidency. Well, yeah, I mean, I want to see how it's going to be portrayed now that we're removed, because like the reverse happens too, because I can remember being in school, right, which was a while ago, but not that long ago in the scheme of things. Yeah. And Woodrow Wilson being considered like one of the greatest presidents ever. Interesting. And now he's legitimately considered one of the worst, if not the worst.
They don't really in Canada. I mean, you probably saw the short I did where Jordan had no idea that our first prime minister was Johnny Mc. We don't really focus on individuals. So, like, I couldn't tell you who the greatest Canadian prime minister is. We only kind of know them in the moment, or like what I guess what's in recent memory. So, like for me, the greatest U.S. presidents is kind of like the famous ones, like your George Washingtons and your Abraham Lincolns and your Nixons. Although Nixon's probably not. No, I heard he wasn't so bad until the Watergate thing.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't so bad.
I learned a lot about Watergate.
It wasn't so bad, except for the fact that he was perpetuating Vietnam, although he did eventually end Vietnam. But in the beginning, he very much was like a war hawk and that. But I'm sorry, I have to address this. Can we all agree that Trump is not the coolest president to be shot? The coolest was Roosevelt. Yes, I agree with that 100%.
Did he get shot during a speech and just keep going?
Yep. Yeah. His speech in his pocket blocked the bullet enough to not kill him. And he even told the crowd, he's like, "Pardon me, I've been shot," and then continues.
I have heard that. There's certain ones I've heard like LBJ just showed his Johnson to everyone and asked them to tell him how big it was. Is it big? I heard that one.
He called it jumbo.
It's funny when I knew I was going to talk to you about politics. I was like, who is, in my opinion, who is my favorite president? And I'm like, it's a tie between Junior and Obama, because Bush Jr. Because Bush Jr. man, that's like my favorite era of comedy. We're really missing making fun of Bush. We all came together making fun of Bush. Like everyone had a Bush impression. Everyone had a Bush joke. I mean, you brought up "That's My Bush." As soon as you started to say it, I was like, he's gonna bring up "That's My Bush." Like, I can't believe another person has heard of "That's My Bush."
I still can't believe that's not bigger. Like,
I think I was in the middle of typing it out. And I'm like, comments are. I believe that show didn't do well because I think it came out towards the end of his presidency. And I could be wrong about this, but I believe people were fairly sick of Bush jokes by that point, and that's why it didn't do well.
So, which is a shame, because in a vacuum, the show's actually very funny.
Matt and Trey did great shit with Bush. I mean, all of my favorite Bush jokes come from Robin Williams, which is when when he choked on a pretzel. He choked on a pretzel, and even his dogs didn't give a shit. They were looking for the salt. Or when he kept bringing up when he waved at Stevie Wonder. And Stevie Wonder waved. Yeah, he's like, I'm not looking for him. That's one of my favorite specials of all time.
Yeah. So, oh gosh, I had a thought and I completely lost it, but it'll come back to me. Oh, so no, that's my Bush. The other reason it's so funny is because it's basically like a parody of the sitcom.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
It's an over the top parody of the sitcom. That's why that's the root of why it's so funny. And then plus you have some pretty good. And I completely forgot about the abortion episode until we played the trailer, and I was like, oh my god.
I mean, I think I do not care for modern South Park, but I will forever respect Matt and Trey. I love those guys. I think they're funny. I think their older shit is way funnier than their newer shit. Like, yeah, I recently watched South Park.
I still get surprised by the new stuff.
It depends. It depends. I will say, Kate, my thing with them is fundamentally they're just not the same guys they were. Like they want to pretend that they are. They want to pretend that they're still the guys who started this show. And like, yeah, it's really hard for me to take them taking a piss on the American healthcare system when they're never going to have to worry about the American healthcare system. It's like it really reminds a lot of modern South Park reminds me of, I don't know how up you are with Ellen DeGeneres, but she did a stand-up special where the entire premise of it was, look, I'm just as relatable as you. I may be living in a mansion and I may have 5 servants, but I still go to reach for the towel and it's still not there. I'm just like you, and it was so disingenuous and awful. But I respected it because at least she owned the fact that she's a millionaire. Like, it's like a comedian getting on stage who's doing sold out tours pretending that they're still like relatable. It's so disingenuous to me.
Yeah.
And
and the thing is, you can still be relatable. You almost have to like acknowledge you basically you can't come on stage and say I'm just like you.
Yeah,
you have to show and not tell.
Exactly.
Right? Because you have. I'm trying to think of a good example here, but I think Joe Rogan's a fairly good example. He's been wealthy for a very long time, but he has lived that. He knows what it's like to be poor.
Yeah.
And he'll be the first to admit, I haven't been poor in a very long time, but I fucking remember.
Gabriel Iglesias, he's another one where he's done material where he's like, yeah, I used to be poor, I'm not poor anymore, and I own that, and I take care of people, and that because I can. I respect that. Where like South Park in in the streaming special, where they're having their insert characters like be like, oh, we took the deal and we benefited from it. It's like they're whining about the $1 million. That the thing about South Park is so much of them is inserted in that show that it's like, yeah, when it's bad or when it's like they have a bad viewpoint, I'm like, yeah, it's very easy for me to be like, yeah, they're like I mean, global warming, man, bear, pig is the most obvious example, but they created an entire generation of voter cynicism just for, and anybody who says that they didn't is, in my opinion, wrong.
They're not looking at reality.
No, but they did create an entire generation of voter apathy, and the fact that they had the balls in 2020 to be like, oh no, but voting is actually important now and vote for Joe Biden. I thought that was so hypocritical. I lost so much respect for them. Like, stand by your self-insert Donald Trump character. Like, they were so ashamed of their insert Donald Trump character. It was embarrassing. Or their shit on addiction. Like, I will never. That's my thing with them is like they clearly Matt or Trey went through some form of addiction, and like experienced that, and we're wrong. You can't just stop drinking. So I have a family member who went through addiction. It bothers me. You can't just like stop drinking. It's kind of a bit more like mentally complex than that. It's not like black and white like that. To where like 10 years later they have the devil be like, yeah, it's not black and white like that. I can't stand hypocrites. Like I just especially in comedy. Like there's nothing that drives me more crazy than a hypocritical comedian where it's like you're trying to like convey a message, but yeah, both sides are. But I know they're like notorious for being like over the years taking shit for like being like notorious fence sitters. But yeah, but old school, their old school shit is funny. Like
as a professional fence sitter,
Yeah, well, I know. Same for sure. Yeah, as a professional fence sitter, I get it. Like, yeah, both sides can be like one of my favorite. I love Team America. We talked about Team America on the podcast.
So good.
That movie is like they were very like. It's funny. I think you said you were rewatching South Park. The thing I noticed the most about rewatching South Park is A, how much the characters change completely. It's kind of amazing. And B, how pissed off they were by 9/11. Like, they were really mad about 9/11. Like, and like, I'm not saying rightfully or wrongfully. But I'm just saying in their storytelling, they were just very mad at the Middle East for like a big chunk of South Park. It was really you could be like, oh. It's just like with COVID where you can be like, and then there's the moment where COVID happened. It's the same thing where you're like, and then there's the moment 9/11 happened. Team America is so great. South Park, the movie, still phenomenal.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, it's
Cannibal, Orgasmo, I've seen all of their movies. Like Cannibal the Musical.
You've seen Cannibal the Musical?
I have seen Cannibal the Musical multiple times.
I want to watch it because
I feel bad because she's a friend, and I don't want, but my ex-girlfriend, she shared a name with the horse and Cartman's mom, and when she broke up with me, was very heartbroken, and I would sing the song he sings about the horse. I would sing it to myself. Yeah, it was bad. It was messy. But yeah, I love that movie. That movie's so funny. Like it's great. I love, they're at their best when they're doing like South Park movie and they're making fun of musical theater. Like I love Book of Mormon.
And those are the jokes that I still haven't seen Book of Mormon and I want to. To answer your, I almost did. I can't remember why I ended up not being able to go, and I regret it. But to answer your question, tall girl, he'd probably kick an ass or two.
That is what Brian Boitano would do, but not Brian Dennehy.
No.
Fuck Brian Dennehy.
Oh god, the movie is so good.
It's legit, and it's so. The thing that blew me away about the movie was how relevant it is today.
Yeah. Well, and the thing about
crazy.
The movie is what made me a genuine fan of South Park, because I'd seen a couple of the super early episodes when it was airing, but I didn't have cable, so I didn't like. What I did see was like VHS recordings that my friend would give me.
Interesting.
But I saw the movie, and it's comedy gold. And if it's not funnier, it's probably funnier now to me than it was then.
Oh, for sure. Like there's like me and Jordan, we just ended up quoting it on the show. But the day the Canadians have bombed the Baldwins. I love watching shit from like the 90s where you're like, man, remember when the Baldwins were popular? And like not just one of them, but like all of them? Yeah. Like that's wild to me.
Well, and then who doesn't love Blame Canada?
I mean, who doesn't love Blame? I love Blame Canada. That's another one. If I had a nickel for every movie that referenced Anne Murray, I'd have 2 nickels, but it's weird that it happens.
I was just thinking about that line from the song the other day. And that bitch Anne Murray too.
And it's funny because I can't remember what else I watched, but I watched another thing from Canada where they referenced Anne Murray. I watched Strange Brew, and I think they referenced Anne Murray, and I was like, she must have been popular in the 90s. I have no idea. Oh, yeah. As a Canadian, I have no idea who she is. No clue.
My mom was a huge Anne Murray fan.
That's so funny.
But, I absolutely love dropping Strange Brew on every Canadian I meet, because they're always like, "How do you know about that?"
that one surprised. Jordan had never heard of Strange Brew. You know Strange Brew. I'll
give credit to my buddy Nick for this. It wasn't even the movie. He was just a fan of SCTV.
Oh, I mean, that was SCTV. Okay, we don't have Comedy Central here. We have Comedy Network. And so SCTV was always kind of it was kind of like Kids in the Hall, where it's like, it's the thing that came on before the thing you actually wanted to watch. So like, you'd always watch like the last 5 minutes of it, but never actually. So I had no idea that they were from SCTV. I knew of them.
So the best part of it, and I might get a detail wrong here, but it's my understanding that the whole Great White North segment came about because of Canadian law.
Yes.
I don't remember what the percentage is, but it's like all television on Canada has to have a certain percentage of Canadian produced television in it.
Yeah, I can't remember what the exact percentage is, but yeah, there's a lot of shit where and in order to get around that, you will often have Canadian shows which are made to look American, and so there'll be a lot of times where you, as a Canadian, you'll be like, I had no idea that was Canadian. But yes, that The Great White North is a response. I thought it was a parody of Wayne's World, like that's what I thought, and then I was reading about it for the show, and I was like, no, it's not.
If I'm not mistaken, Wayne's World got its start in SCTV as well, or something like it.
I don't. He used to. I don't know if it was SCTV, but he used to do the character live. But it was the same thing with Austin Powers. Austin Powers. Fun fact about Austin Powers is he started off as the lead singer of a fictional band called Ming T, and so that okay. Taxing your memory. You remember in Austin Powers, you know the band he's always playing with in the transitional scenes. That's, or if you've seen the third one, Daddy Wasn't There. The band that's playing with him, that's Ming T.
That's awesome.
And so
I love the fact that I know that now.
Yeah, so they got big off of a song called the BBC, which is in the credits of the first Austin Powers, I believe. So yeah, he was a character that Austin would just do, or Mike Myers would just do live.
Nice.
Which, by the way, I will forever resent the Love Guru for killing Michael Myers' career. Just as a Canadian, like my friend made us my friend made us watch that movie. We had to I can't think, I don't know Indianapolis well, but she made us go to watch it on her birthday. We had to like rush from like a local theme park to get to watch it. We had to take a bus. And it was terrible, and she was so mad because we like rushed to get there, and we barely made it on time, and we were all like sweaty and exhausted, and it was the Love Guru. Yeah, she was so. It was that, and the time she was like, "What do we watch? The Dark Knight for the fourth time, or Disaster Movie?" And I don't really want to watch
is the right choice.
Yeah, you'll never guess what the choice I made was.
Was it a disaster?
She was very pissed at me, Jake. So that's the only reason why I've seen that movie.
I don't blame her.
Yeah, those are bad. There's a reason those movies died. There's a reason why those movies died.
I don't know. Oh, I don't think I ever finished explaining how... Okay, I have not finished. The first premise was that conservatives are losing the culture war.
Yeah. Well, certainly they're faking it better. Would be what I would say.
Well, no. See, here's the thing, and this I have been calling for a number of years. So, a lot of people view like the culture war as a streamline, like a straight line. It's not, although it often appears to be. It's a pendulum.
Interesting.
And what'll happen inevitably, and this happens both times, because if you recall, during the Bush years, the pendulum swung a little too far to the right because you started getting a little bit too... the fundamentalist Christians started getting a little bit too much say in what things were good and what things were bad, and the pendulum shifted back to the left. And now the left has taken it too far, at least for the vast majority of Americans, because the other thing that's happened is, and this is a symptom of progressivism, so... the center is always moving. Mm-hmm. It's the nature of progressivism. You're moving so in a way, it is a straight line. So, for example, like in 2003, the vast majority of Republicans were anti-gay marriage.
Interesting.
And now, I mean, don't get me wrong, particularly the evangelical right are still against it. The vast majority of Republicans truly don't care.
No, they don't. That's what's so baffling about it. That's why it's like, okay, tell me if you disagree with this sentence. Roe v. Wade was the dumbest thing. Repealing Roe v. Wade was a dumb move by conservatives, and it cost them the last two elections.
Yes, I actually said that on a podcast.
That's why I feel comfortable asking you this question, because that's my assessment.
And it's not so much that it was a dumb decision in a vacuum, even though I don't agree with it, and you'll understand why I say that here in a second. The decision, I can understand the mentality of the decision. However, I think it was kind of pointless because... So here's my thing about being pro-life. I think the vast majority of, and this is going to piss people off, I think the vast majority of pro-lifers are actually not pro-lifers, and here's why I say that. Because if your stance is that an abortion is literal murder, then there is no appropriate time to have one. Yet the vast majority of these people are like, yeah, we should do a 15-week ban. And here's the thing. You can make the case politically, and it's a valid case, that, okay, we're not going to be able to get rid of abortion, period, so we have to take the best. But if your stance is that it's a literal murder, it doesn't matter if it's 15 weeks or 1 week.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if the principle of your argument is that it is a murder.
Yeah.
Because the definition of a murder being wrong is that it's wrong no matter what.
Yeah. But
You know.
and that's why Donald Trump, his stance is like, I think it's like for the states, whatever, and like those hardcore, like his base didn't like that, and a lot of people thought that would. Here's my thing, I feel like I haven't shit on Joe Biden enough. I don't like Joe Biden either.
We need to. Yeah.
I'm very much a center person. Like I don't support. I believe Donald Trump will win. And that's not a sentence I love to say because I don't support Donald Trump.
I mean, but if you objectively look at the data, because I was even looking at it's actually my favorite site for elections. It's called 270towin.com, and they have interactive maps. And the latest prediction they have is Donald Trump winning by. I mean, I wouldn't call it a landslide, but a fairly substantial amount. Like it's a pretty solid victory.
Here's what I think. I don't think the shooting. Oh. Sorry, I need to do something. I need to verify. There we go. I don't think this shooting will move the needle as significantly as some conservatives or Republicans think it will.
No. What moved the needle was Biden's debate performance.
That's the thing.
That's what moved
that
the
I
needle.
completely agree with that. Oh my god, because I'm so sick to death of seeing Republicans pretending like the shooting is going to move the needle.
Now,
Because
don't get me wrong,
what moved the needle
helped.
was that debate performance.
Don't get me wrong, it helped, but that's not what.
No,
I would've
was that
said-
debate performance. It absolutely was.
I still kind of believe Trump had a bit of an edge prior to that, but once that happened, I think
It didn't move my needle. I have been saying I've been saying pretty much like since him getting charged with felonies didn't really seem to impact anything. Nothing sticks to that guy. And Joe Biden, it's not in my opinion, it's not Donald Trump's election to win so much as it's Joe Biden's election to lose.
See, I disagree. I think it's very much Trump's election to win, and there's a few reasons why. But you say it doesn't stick, and I would argue a bit of a clarification of that statement. It's not so much that it's not sticking; it's the fact that a lot of people, and not just Republicans, are looking at, and I'm one of them, are looking at all of those charges that were brought up and realize that even if there's something legitimately there, it's something that is not normally prosecuted at that political level, and that this is all pretty much being brought up for political reasons. So,
I mean, yeah, I don't disagree that the political system doesn't like him. They're going nuclear on him, but I think that not all Republicans, but a great deal of Republicans are too cowardly, or they don't want to for political reasons stand to admit that they don't want to support him, or they want to toe the party line.
Well,
a
lot of them do, and actually, I wanted to bring this up, so I'm glad you said that because it reminded me. So, you talked about a lot of the primary candidates in the Republican Party. I can actually walk you through, and I think pretty accurately, the motivations of every person who was on that stage at one point. And very few of them actually were running to be president. I think there were realistically only 3 that were legitimately running to be president. Yeah. Vivek Ramaswamy was not running for president. He was running for a cabinet position. Mike Pence knew on day one he didn't have a snowball's chance in hell of winning.
He couldn't have.
But he wanted to clean up his legacy. Chris Christie had rhetoriced himself into a corner about being anti-Trump, so he had to be on the stage. Ron DeSantis waited until arguably the last minute to decide whether he was going to run or not, because the only way he was going to run is if Trump was going to get arrested.
Yeah,
and
he thought Trump was going to jail. There's no way he did.
By the time he announced he was running, it seemed fairly likely that some of those charges were going to stick, and somehow he was going to get disqualified. Nikki Haley. She's the one I can't really peg, because I honestly think she did kind of think that if Trump wasn't in the race, she had a shot.
I don't think she did.
I don't see. That's the thing. I don't think she did either because she's Eric, the co-host of the Average Intelligence podcast. Also, although I don't know how big of a joke it was per se, but he'd always kind of jokingly say she was a Democrat asset. But here's the thing, though: if you look at some of it, it's kind of like I'm not saying it's true, but if it came out that she was, I wouldn't be that surprised.
God, man, I don't know. I don't know what the Democrats are thinking because.
Well, but Nikki Haley
is
Nikki Haley is a Bush era Republican though.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Very, very
like a
you know?
Liz Cheney, right up there with a Liz Cheney.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Where and it's so surreal to me to see so many anti-war Republicans because I'm just not used to that.
Yeah.
It was a platform of the party that I disagreed with for the most part, and I'm kind of happy to see it. But now I think they're taking it a little too far.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
You've got them. You got a lot of Republicans calling for like pulling out all funding from Ukraine, and it's like, well, okay, I agree that we've spent probably way too much. It's not so much how much we've spent; it's how little oversight there's been
allocation
with that dollar amount, right?
Fair.
But I would never seriously suggest that you stop sending money altogether. I think you attach more, not even strings, because that's not what I mean to say. You attach more oversight to it.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm a firm believer there's no such thing as too much oversight. Like,
there is, but but see, the thing is more oversight. Oh shit! My bad. I don't know what I did. I meant to look at a comment and I accidentally scrolled up.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of options. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm afraid to push buttons, but
same.
I do. If Tall Girl would be so kind as to clarify what she means by. If pro-life stops after the child is born, then it's not pro-life, it's pro-forceful birth.
Oh, she's talking the idea that for a lot of Republicans, the idea that once or pro-life people, once the child is born, that's it, they're on their own. They care more about forcing someone to give birth rather than taking care of the child after they've been born.
So I can actually speak to that. I'm not trying to argue, but that's a talking point that, how do I say this? Because I'm so not trying to be a jerk about it, but, okay, so a lot of pro-life Republicans get grief for being anti-abortion, but pro the death penalty. And the difference is the child is, in their mind, the child is innocent, whereas somebody who's on death row presumably has committed a crime. Now, there's issues with that. I think obviously we know some people. Wait, the kids. I don't understand your question.
So if you're not donating to programs or helping to help single mom or kids in need, are you really in it for the kids?
But that's the thing, and that's the part that nobody talks about. I forget who did the study, but I'm sure you can look it up. Conservatives, generally speaking, donate obscenely more money than their liberal counterparts do. And for a number of different causes. In fact, there's an organization called Preborn that their whole shtick is they give ultrasounds for free, and afterwards give resources to mothers who elect to have babies, and that's not taxpayer funded. That's fully funded by donations.
See, my position when it comes to abortion is really quite simple. It's that I can't have one. So I tend to not have an opinion on what goes on in having one, and
you can, you just don't give birth.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I tend to go with the I resent the idea that just because you're pro-choice that means that you're pro-abortion. I dislike because
that's another thing, and that flips it on its side. So,
I'm not. Nope. I don't think a single person is pro-abortion. They're just
believe it or not, I didn't think so. Honestly, it's a very small number, but I think there are people.
Really? Because I'm certainly. It's not a choice that I would want to make, but if it's one that's medically or necessary for some reason, and the person needs to make it, then that's a discussion that they should be able to have.
Yeah, I agree. And believe you me, I wasn't in favor of Roe versus Wade being overturned for multiple reasons, not least of which being that there's literally a podcast episode where I say it. when that happened. I said, you guys you killed the red. There was supposed to be a big red wave.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That it killed the red wave. Absolutely killed the red wave.
Dead. It killed it dead. And I said, whether you agree or not, this is an issue. This was not the time. And Republicans are real good at shooting themselves in the face. I call it. They're very good at pulling a Dick Cheney, but on themselves.
Yeah, for sure.
They have the issue in their sights, right? And then they got it. They're locked in. And then they turn the gun over, put it in their mouth, and then pull the trigger.
So, okay, here's my question for you. Let's say, because there's talk, I just before talking to you, I saw a clip about the RNC, but how even Obama is pushing Biden to drop out. Obama was
trying to brought that up because I want this on record. Yeah, so actually, not before we get on that, tall girl, I'm aware of the case you're talking about. I have not found a valid reason for Texas pulling the shit they pulled.
To be fair, it's Texas.
And fair enough. I was looking for it because a lot of times...
Am I allowed to make fun of Texas? Because it's Texas.
Well, but the thing is, a lot of times in those stories, the journalist or whoever's writing the article will leave out very, very key information.
Yeah.
On that particular case, I couldn't find any valid reason why they denied that, and I have yet to. So, and now she can't have kids. That's exactly. So, and believe me, I'm not in favor. When it comes to abortion, I think that we're asking the wrong question.
Yeah, yeah.
The question is,